Come on, get up.
Morning, Brian.
Stephen, are you aware that you've voluntarily embarked upon a PhD in physics?
Hello.
Hello.
Science.
Arts.
I'm a cosmologist.
What's that?
I study the marriage of space and time.
The perfect couple.
One never knows from where the next great leap forward is going to come, or from whom.
What if I reverse time to see what happened at the beginning of time itself?
Wind back the clock.
Wind back the clock?
Keep going.
I don't know how.
Yet.
Keep winding!
Where to?
It's called motor neuron disease. Life expectancy is 2 years.
I want us to be together for as long as we've got.
It'll affect everything.
You don't realize what lies ahead. This is going to be a very heavy defeat.
But I love him. And he loves me. We're going to fight this illness together. Good luck.
Why?
I'm okay.
So, this black hole at the beginning of time. Brilliant. Brilliant, Stephen. Well done, Doctor.
He has pneumonia. The only way he will survive will be to give him a tracheotomy. He will never speak again.
Yes, he will.
My name is Stephen Hawking.
It's American.
Is that a problem?
It has been a great joy to watch this man defy every expectation, both scientific and personal.
There should be no boundaries to human endeavor. However bad life may seem, while there is life, there is hope.
Thank you.
Sorry, did you say something?
I said thank you.
Hello everyone, welcome to the second episode of Real Conversations. My name is Daigo.
My name is Fred.
And we're here to talk about the theory of everything.
So to date, James Marsh's Stephen Hawking's biopic / love story, The Theory of Everything, has amassed a 17.9 million domestic total, with an additional 2.3 million overseas. While a roughly 20.2 million worldwide total isn't very favorable, especially given the production budget alone was $15 million, Theory will look towards its accolades in order to generate more buzz and hopefully more profit. Thus far, Theory's widest release has been just over 1,000 theaters in 41 days into its initial release, and previously had grossed just over 5 million in about 802 theaters on November 26th. So, I was looking at a few possible factors for the reason why this movie might have had some limited gross thus far. And one of them I arrived at was that James Marsh, the film's director, is a relatively unknown director, and his previous works include the 2008 and 2011 documentaries Man on a Wire and Project Nim, and his only feature film was 2012's Shadow Dancer, and that was starring Clive Owen in a 90s set political thriller about the IRA.
Oh.
So, he's a relatively new director. I guess he doesn't have as much of a big name for himself as other independent filmmakers like, say, Steven Soderbergh or Jason Reitman or a few other directors like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And given the fact that he has this, because I'm actually familiar with both of those documentaries,
Okay.
and I never thought about it, but it's an interesting thing because I guess it would make him maybe an adequate choice in part of the studio in terms of making a biofilm. I can see it going both ways actually, either good or bad. But I can see the logic of picking him as the director. Yeah.
No, it would definitely seem appropriate. I mean, they're somewhat in the same stream, making the transition from documentary to biography. It seems appropriate. And the other factor I was looking at was that Eddie Redmayne, the film's lead star, and Felicity Jones, who is the lead actress, although they are swiftly building a respectable repertoire, they're relatively unknown and pretty new actors. Eddie Redmayne has starred along Sean Bean in the grim, dark age set Black Death, and more recently has had a supporting role as Marius in Tom Hopper's Les Mis.
Yeah.
And more recently, he has a supporting role as a villain in the upcoming Wachowski siblings movie, right. Jupiter Ascending.
Yes, right.
So he seems to be getting a bit more roles, and he seems to be becoming more of a known actor in Hollywood, and especially with any awards or accolades that he might get with The Theory of Everything.
Yeah.
That's going to help his career, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of Felicity Jones, she's had a few movies, including the romantic drama Like Crazy, and she also starred as Charles Dickens' young love interest in the Ralph Fiennes directed movie The Invisible Woman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I remember. I haven't watched that movie, but I remember there's so many good movies that it just slips through my fingers. Damn it.
It's hard to keep them all in.
Yeah, no, I gotta watch that. Oh,
Yeah.
So she's in that movie. I didn't know.
She is, yeah, and apparently she's done quite a good job in that movie. So these are actors that come from exceptional films, like good films, well acted. I guess it was a good casting choice on the part of James Marsh. The last factor that I looked at for the reason why this movie might be having a limited growth so far is that it has a lot of stiff competition from other movies that are coming out in this award season just before Golden Globes and the Oscars. So movies such as Birdman,
Yes.
Gone Girl, Reese Witherspoon's Wild, Imitation Game,
Yeah.
and Foxcatcher as well. So these are all pretty heavy contenders for the award season. So this movie is trying to, I guess, find its place within that. And if it can find its audience, especially once the award nominations come out, I do think that its gross will have a bit of longevity in terms of how much money it can make back. So in terms of overall reviews, what the critics are saying, The Theory of Everything holds a strong 81% on Rotten Tomatoes, with an average of 7.4 out of 10, and 7.7 from top critics. Audiences seem quite pleased as well, with 84% liking the movie, with an average of 4 out of 5. In addition, IMDb gave the movie a similar rating, with 7.7 out of 10 on almost 11,000 votes. However, Metacritic amassed a bit lower of an average, with a still respectable 72 out of 100. So that's not too bad. It's not something that's exceptional or stands out.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not sure what you've found, but at least from what I've read in terms of main criticisms for the movie, one of them was, while it does have exceptional performances, it is an ordinary movie. It's very conventional, almost to a fault.
The same types of reviews, or same comments, I should say, that I found out as well. We both went to see it. At least for me personally, I was expecting something a bit more along the lines like Beautiful Mind, something a bit more, but this is a movie more related to the relationship between Stephen Hawking and Jane Hawking. Both of them were married for several years. They had children and whatnot. Spoiler alert. It was more focused on the romance than anything else, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it wasn't what I was expecting. And certainly the movie in itself, with that type of focus, it has its strengths. But I felt as well that there wasn't much of something extraordinary in terms of the storytelling itself. The story is good. Knowing that side of Stephen Hawking's life and Jane Hawking's life is amazing, and I think it was well done. But as that review says, I at least personally, I have to agree that there wasn't something very out of the ordinary about it.
I agree. Like, this is one of the most extraordinary men of our time, and the discoveries he's made have been absolutely significant in furthering our understanding of the birth of the universe and our place among the stars and whatnot. And for such an amazing breadth of work to come from one individual and what he's had to overcome, I wish they had focused more on that aspect as opposed to more so just his relationship, although very important in his life. It's just a bit too much focus on the love story side for me. in saying that, the love story was done very well and was very well acted, and there's nothing I could say to take it away from that.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But yeah, it was. I wish they had focused more on the actual science, the actual work of Stephen Hawking, as opposed to his romantic life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. The movie's based on an autobiographical novel written by Jane Hawking, My Life with Stephen Hawking.
Yes.
And it's one of those things that I thought about after watching the movie is it sprung in me the curiosity of reading that book and see what elements were based or extracted from the book to make the movie, and what fragments were extracted from whatever notes or conversations or interviews that people have from Stephen Hawking directly. But I have to say, in terms of portrayal of Stephen Hawking's life, or at least focus in his love life and his relationship with Jane Hawking, it was one of the things that I got out on the movie as well, is that this, I would love to meet Stephen Hawking, because with all his struggles and all these things that happen in his life, his attitude seems to be very light.
He always has that sense of humor, it seems.
Exactly. And that's one thing, that's a mark of a great man, and not necessarily I'd probably do the same thing or react the same way, but it's just, he is a hero in my heart after watching the movie, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, from what I've heard from interviews and press conferences for this movie, it seems that both Stephen Hawking and Jane, I can't remember her last name now, that it isn't Hawking.
I can remember as well.
Both of them have seemed to have been very supportive during the production of this film, and seem to be quite comfortable with having their personal lives portrayed on film. And apparently it did take a bit of convincing from the screenwriter, I believe, in order to try to get this book onto film. Apparently there was a bit of convincing that had to be done on the part of trying to convince Jane. But eventually they got around to it, and they were so closely knit with the making of this movie that even apparently during the ball scene, where the fireworks were going off, I guess when they were graduating or whatnot, Stephen Hawking actually showed up with Jane, and they were watching it, and he felt like he had actually went back in time.
Oh, wow.
And Stephen Hawking apparently had said at certain points when he was watching Eddie Redmayne's performance, it was like he was looking at himself in his younger body. And
I can't believe
so
that.
I mean, that's only a compliment towards his performance. I mean,
I think maybe, I'm not so sure, but just imagining the pressure that the actors might have on set, because they're there and they're looking at you, you're interpreting or acting as them, and they're just right there. Oh my god, that's crazy.
I know, that's a lot of pressure, and but yeah, I can certainly say that they had delivered on their performance, because I mean, those two actors were the main draw of this movie for me.
Oh yes, definitely,
absolutely.
Definitely. And that's the thing as well, like minor characters that are the professors of Stephen Hawking or his close friends. They're there, but they do have a minor role. I mean, the movies will always focus on these two characters, most definitely.
One of the supporting characters actually that plays Stephen Hawking's main professor that pushes him into his
Daniel
research. Lewis,
yeah.
I find personally he's an underrated actor.
Oh,
and
yes,
he's always
most
popping
definitely.
up. He's always popping up in these films, and he's always given these roles that are sort of there to just, bridge the gap between the main characters, like just providing a really solid filler in the background. But I think that he deserves a better, more prominent role in terms of the movies that he's choosing.
Yeah. I know that Eddie Redmayne, actually, for his training of, or let's say, I wouldn't say training, I don't know how to say this, but in terms of how he would go in the transition of showing to the audience the journey of being able to walk and talk and whatnot, and then going through this neural degeneration. Had a lot of sessions with chiropractors and ideas in terms of how he would move and how he would lose motion, actually, and how he would practice breathing and slouch and move and sort of like curl up. But I know that he also beforehand he met with Stephen Hawking, he talked, and he was very nervous, but he definitely did his homework.
Absolutely, and yeah, like the fact that his spine was actually manipulated so it seemed a bit out of place. I mean, that shows his commitment and like his determination to play this role right. But something interesting to add to that, actually, the physical manipulation. Apparently, he started off working with dancers.
Oh, right.
In order to like try to get control over his own body movements and his muscles, in order to try to accurately get that depiction of neural degeneration and control loss of his muscles. He was originally training with a physical trainer in order to get in shape for his villainous role as a Baron in Jupiter Ascending.
Okay.
But this same trainer had actually also had experience dealing with ALS patients.
Right.
And so that's where his research began, working with this trainer from this other movie to start looking into ALS patients, spending time with their families.
Yes.
And so it was kind of interesting to see how those two movies kind of bridging the gap, using the resources from one movie for his next film. So I found that was pretty interesting.
And he did meet with ALS families and patients as well, yeah.
He did, yeah. And I think in order to understand like the dynamic of trying to make a family work amid such a crippling disease, that spending time with families of actual ALS patients would probably be an integral part of his research.
Yes. Just going back to the thing that we mentioned before, the movie still focused on the nature of the romance or the relationship between these two people. The first thing that comes in my mind, I guess, in terms of showing that struggle from Stephen Hawking is that scene where he finally graduated as a PhD student. He's having dinner with his friends and Jane Hawking at his house. And then he just, feels a bit overwhelmed because everybody's moving, having a laugh, grabbing the cups and glasses all by themselves. And he quietly retires from the kitchen and tries to go up, but he's crawling, going up the stairs crawling. And he sees his baby kid, and he tells the kid, "It's all right, no worries," and he just keeps on going. And it's just, and I don't know if the Felicity Jones, did she meet Jane Hawking and any?
I am actually not quite sure myself. I hadn't researched anything on that.
Yeah, and I know that the actors did have access to old footage recordings, though.
Yes, one of the things that Jane had done was she gave some of her clothes to the wardrobe people in the movie. I don't know if they actually used Jane's clothes or if they used them to design the costumes for Felicity Jones. But so it seems to have been constant cooperation, which makes me think that this actually was a somewhat accurate depiction of their life. If they're able to give their approval of the development of the movie,
right,
then I think that they must be doing at least a acceptable or accurate enough job in their review. Actually, there's another bit of interesting information I have here in terms of Eddie Redmayne, and apparently Eddie Redmayne had 3 pictures taped to the wall of his trailer.
All right.
Which he would look at for inspiration every time before he would go out on set to film a scene. These pictures included the image of the Joker from Batman.
Wow.
James Dean, and Albert Einstein with the iconic photo of him sticking his tongue out. I guess what this represented, for one, was, at least with the Joker, his ability to hold the room. The ability to be the center of attention. So I'd allude back to The Dark Knight, where the Joker comes in during the mob scene and all eyes are on him. He's the focus of the room.
Yes.
And then for James Dean, just that ever-present feeling of, this guy's cool.
Yes.
This guy's Cool Hand Luke and all those classic films.
Yeah.
And then for Einstein, especially sticking his tongue out, this represents within this genius mind, there's still that person that likes to joke around, likes to be a comedian, likes to laugh and still have fun in life. And so I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Because those 3 things, you wouldn't think the Joker and Stephen Hawking, how does that relate? But I can see it in the explanation that he gives for why he used those pictures.
Yeah, that's true. That's very creative on behalf of Eddie Redmayne's part. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Who would have thought that Stephen Hawking is a mashup of James Dean, the Joker, and Einstein? That's crazy.
Yeah. It's a very interesting opinion or look into the personality of this man. So
I wonder if Stephen Hawking would agree to that. But anyway. Yeah. But anyway, okay, let's talk about the movie's, I guess, strengths and weaknesses. Again, at least for me, it was more the fact of I feel the same way as you mentioned before, much about the science behind his life, as well as other stories in regards of his background were not explored, which I guess it wasn't the intention of the movie at all, especially because it's based on Jane Hawking's book.
Exactly. Yeah.
But other than that, I think it was a very well done movie. For instance, I love the photography of the movie. Like, the photography was amazing. Shots were beautifully made and set. Nice use of light, nice use of colors. But there were a few decisions in terms of cinematography, in terms of scenes. Like, for instance, I mentioned to you before, like when we left the movie, I remember. I felt that the scenes where there was that footage, that homemade footage pretend, that we're recreating the footage of old, house material from Stephen Hawking's whatever road trip or beach trip or camping trip or whatever.
Yes.
I felt that was a bit odd and unnecessary, especially as well with the grain effect that these scenes had. So I wasn't so keen on those. At least it took me away from the movie in a very odd way that I didn't expect.
Yeah, almost as if it was trying to emulate something that wasn't its own.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Exactly right. I think I felt a bit, off-put because of those scenes. Oddly enough, although I was going through that movie while I was watching, and I was having that feeling of, this is not much, there's nothing really out of the ordinary or something really special outside the movie, and I was watching these great performances. The scene that sold me watching this movie was actually almost towards the end of the movie. It's that scene where Stephen and Jane split up. They have this small conversation. Felicity Jones' line is, I have loved you.
Yes.
But she kneels, and you can see Stephen Hawking's sadness and expression and everything, that he means well, that he loves her, but it's too much at this point. And obviously Stephen Hawking can't speak, but you can see everything just with the eyebrows and the tears that come out of Stephen. And that scene in itself, I said to myself, okay, it was worth going through watching this movie just because of that, and I found that brilliant. But that was almost at the end of the movie.
Yeah, that was a very powerful and gripping scene. I would agree with you on that.
But yeah, I mean, not necessarily like the most spectacular biographical movie that I've seen, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in overall it was a great undertaking in terms of showing that side of Stephen Hawking's life.
Yes.
How about you? Like, do you have something to add to that, or?
Well, yeah, just as Hawking himself was looking for a single, unifying, elegant theory, this movie itself was shot elegantly. It was very well packaged.
Yes.
But it was, in that sense, it was also very linear. It almost hit... The story itself isn't so much a cliche, but in terms of the way the movie was presented, it seemed somewhat cliched. Like, the setting up, the triumph, falling in love, falling out of love, the ending, it didn't seem to deviate from the formula that those type of movies usually fall under. But what I felt separated it for me was the performances.
Yes, yeah.
And that's really what done it in. And like I said, it was beautifully shot, beautifully filmed. I don't think you could take that away from it, but it was very safe. And there was only a few points in the movie almost planted like little seeds where I got the feel of the movie that I wanted. And one of the scenes, for example, was when he got his shirt caught over his head. And at this point, his muscles were deteriorating, and he wasn't physically able to take the shirt off his head. And through the cotton, he was staring at this blurred vision of the fire, and all the little pieces of fire that he could see were starting to form into stars that were moving around, and you could kind of see the psychological process of him having an epiphany, or thinking of a new theory, or thinking of an idea to approach the problem that he had. Another one was when he was staring into his coffee and he was watching the milk or the cream just blend in, and I guess he saw some sort of mental imagery of the universe forming, or a black hole, or who knows. But there was those two scenes that I can remember off the top of my head where I felt like that was the kind of movie that I wanted to see, like this sort of psychological trip into his mind and how he discovered what he eventually presented for his PhD and what
Yes.
he's written about in all his books to date. But unfortunately, like I said, those were very interdispersed throughout a
Yes.
movie that was ultimately 2 hours long. And so, while I say this was a well-made film and very well acted, it was very tamed. And so for that purpose, I would probably give it 3.5 reels out of 5.
Actually, I would agree with you. I would say that it's around, even for me, it's around 3 or 3.5 out of 5 reels. Definitely. But would you suggest that movie to anyone? Just
For those who do like the romantic genre, it is definitely a cut above. And for those who like biographies, I would say be patient, but it is worth it for the performances. And I would not be surprised to eventually see Eddie Redmayne either with a Golden Globe or with an Oscar.
oh man, I hope so.
But absolutely, he will be getting nominations for both. Actually, he has been nominated for a Golden Globe, but I can almost guarantee that he will get the Oscar nod for Best Actor.
I hope so.
And Felicity Jones for Supporting Actor.
Nice. I hope so.
Yeah.
Well, that's a wrap up, I guess, for the episode. And for the listeners, thank you very much. And for me, this is Daigo, and signing off, and see you guys next time.
Until the next movie.